Hey guys, welcome to our channel Coders Arcade. So in today's video, I am going to talk about how we can print diamond shape pattern onto your Python console. So let us begin. So before we do that, I am going to show you how the logic behind this program works. So let us see the logic first and then we'll continue writing our program here.
So let us begin with the logic of this program. So here, as you can see, I have created this diamond pattern right here, and we are going to print this diamond pattern onto our Python console. So here I am using this grid to explain how we can print this pattern onto our Python console. So this grid is nothing but the number of spaces and stars that is being used into this grid to explain how we can print the pattern or this particular pattern onto a Python console. So let's begin. So first of all, as you can see, this is the diamond shape that we are going to print. Okay, so we are going to first of all divide this pattern into two parts. So first pattern will be for the upper one and the second one will be the lower one. Okay, so we are going to use two for loops for this diamond shape to be printed. So there will be one for loop which will use I as a loop variable for this particular upper part of this diamond, and there will be another for loop which will be using j as the loop variable for the lower part of this pattern. So here, first of all, we'll create a function. Let's say def, I'll create diamond, and inside a diamond parameter will be rows. So you can see there are a number of rows and there are a number of columns in this grid, and here we have used rows as the parameter for our function. Now here we are going to create two for loops. So first one for the upper one and the second one for the lower part of the diamond shape. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create first for loop. So I'll write for I in range, and here in the parameter I am going to give rows. Okay, now here you can see I have given rows as the parameter. So what will be the value of I here? Suppose I give rows as 4, right? I'm just supposing this, that the value of rows is 4, correct? So what will be the value of I here in this loop variable? I'll write here I will be, if the rows is 4, then I will go from 0 to 3. So 0, 1, 2 and 3. You can see the value of I will be 0, 1, 2, 3 in all the different iterations of this for loop, correct? So here what I am going to do is now I am going to start printing the number of spaces and stars. So here how we are going to tell Python that where to put star. So suppose we want star here, right? So we need to tell Python that there are 3 spaces before this star, and then there is a star in after 3 spaces, correct? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print in this for loop only, I'm going to print spaces and star. I'm going to concatenate the space and the star together, and then I'm going to just print it simply. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write print, and then I have just written single inverted commas. In single inverted commas I have written space. I have left some space here, and then I'm going to tell how many times I want this space. So right here I want 3 spaces, right? So I'll write here rows minus I minus 1. Why I have written here? I have written this formula for our number of spaces, how many number of spaces will be there, correct? So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to concatenate this number of spaces with the number of stars I want. So here I want 1 number of stars. So what I'm going to do is in bracket I'm going to write star, and I'll leave some space here. Why I'm leaving some space here, I'll tell you afterwards. I'm going to tell how many number of stars are there. I'll write here I plus 1, and I'll close this. So why I have written this? Now let's see. I told you before that the rows value we have taken, suppose we have the rows value to be 4, correct? So here value of rows will be 4, right? Here in this variable, in this parameter. So here, and you can see in this rows the value will be 4, correct? So 4 minus, in the first iteration of this for loop, this is the first iteration. So in the first iteration for this for loop will be, what will be the value of I in the first iteration? 0, correct. So here value of rows is 4 and the value of I is 0 in this first iteration, so minus 0 minus 1. So here what we get? 4 minus 0, which is 4, and minus 1, which is 3. So now this is space, how many times this space will be there? Into 3. That means 3 number of times space will be there. So 1, 2 and 3. So this way, using this formula, we told Python that this many number of spaces are there, correct? So 3 number of spaces, so 1, 2, 3, and then in concatenation with the star, here in the formula, if you put I equals to 0 plus 1, then this star will be printed how many times? 1 time. So here star came. Now after this star is printed, the control of this statement will be gone to again this for loop, right? So now in the second iteration, value of I will be 1. Value of I is updated in the second iteration, and now here the value of I will be updated. So rows will be the same because the input is 4. So again in the second iteration, it will be 4 minus I will be 1 minus 1. Using this formula only, you can see 4 minus 1, which is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. So here 2. So now in the second iteration, second row will be containing 2 spaces, right? And now in concatenation with the star, how many times this star will be printed? The value of I is in the second iteration will be 1. So here 1 plus 1, which is 2, correct? So now Python will know that now in the second iteration, in the second row, 2 stars will be printed. So here you remember that I have left some space after this star. Why? Because now see, 2 stars, right? So first star will be printed here, and then there will be some space left here, right? And now again this star will be printed here, and then this space will be left here, correct? So in the second iteration, this way will be printed. Okay, now the control will go again back to this first for loop, and here the value of I will be changed. So here now in the third iteration, the value of I will be 2, correct? So here what happens, row will be the same, so 4 minus I will be updated, which is 2 in the third iteration, as you can see here, and then minus 1. So 4 minus 2, 2, and 2 minus 1, which will be 1, right? So now this space will be printed 1 number of time. So here 1 space will come. And now if you see how many times this star will be printed, I value is 2 right here. So 2 plus 1. So 3. So now 3 stars will be printed onto our third row, correct? So again star with the space. So here 1 space is there, then 1, then space, this is space, and then 2 stars, then is this space again, and then third star, and then 1 space again. So here you can see that now our shape is forming, and again the control will go back to this one, and now the value of I will be updated to 3. In the last iteration or in the fourth iteration, the value of I is now 3. So you can see here 4 minus 3 minus 1. So 4 minus 3 equals to 1, 1 minus 1 equals to 0, correct? So now in this case there will be 0 spaces. So here space will not come, and in this case how many times in the fourth iteration, how many times this star will be printed? Here you can see value of I is 3 right now. So 3 plus 1, 4 stars, right? So here 4 stars will be printed. Since spaces are 0, so star will start from here, and then space. Why space? This is space. 2, then space, then 3, then space, then 4 stars. So like this, we have completed our upper part. So now when all the iterations are completed, now the control will go to another for loop for our lower part of the shape, right? So I'll just rub this everything. Let me just show you once again what happened here. Rows was 4, right? So in the first iteration, value of I is 0, and then if you put those values onto this formula, 4 minus 4 is the rows, 0 is the first iteration of I, and then minus 1. So you get this much spaces. And then the second, this is the first iteration, this is the second one, this is the third, and this is the fourth, and so on. And here we printed all the stars and the space. Similarly for star. Now I'll just rub this and I'll tell you the other one. So this was the first for loop. Now we'll move on to the second for loop for the lower part of the program. So here what will happen, once this is completed, the control will go back to the next for loop. So for j, I'm going to write here for j in range, and inside our range what I'm going to do is, how I'll tell the range, I'm going to write here rows minus 1 comma, I'm going to write here 0 and then comma, and then I'm going to write minus 1. Now you might have confused what has happened here. So here what will be the range, this is the lower limit and this is the upper limit. So rows minus 1 is the lower limit and 0 is the upper limit, and this minus 1 is the step. So this is the lower limit, this is the upper limit, and this is the step. So how this range function will work, lower limit of is the row minus 1. So what is the rows right here, 4. So 4 minus 1, which is 3. So the lower limit is 3 and 0 is the upper limit, right? Why I have put this minus 1 as a step, because this will tell to go from, the iteration will start from 3 and it will go to 0. So what will be the value of j in the second one, the second for loop? The value of j will be 3, 2 and then 1. Got my point? Why I use this minus 1 right here? Minus 1 is the step that is telling me that whatever the row is, minus 1 and it will go till 0, and minus 1 will tell that it has to go from 3 to 0, correct? So 3, 2 and 1, and 0 will not be there because it is always n minus 1, as you know. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this will be the value for j. Now I'll rub this and I'll show what happens here. So in the first iteration, the value of j will be 3, right? So again, I'm going to use the same print statement, and only there will be some small changes into this. Again, I'm going to print spaces. How many number of times? The formula will be, can you guess? Rows minus j. Why rows minus j? I'll tell you. In concatenation with star and some space and then again j. So here you can see I've printed space, then how many number of times? Row minus j number of times, correct? And then star and then space, how many number of times? J times. So let us see by putting the values, all the values, and then let's see how we can get the lower part of the program. So here in the first iteration, you can see the value of j, the loop variable j is 3 right now, and the value of rows is 4. So here we'll get, in the first iteration, row will be 4 minus, in the first iteration value of j is 3. So 4 minus 3 equals to 1, correct? So how many number of times space will be there? 1 number of times. So here again one space came in this grid, and then plus concatenation with the star and space, and how many number of times this star will come? J number of times, which is 3 number of times, correct? So here 3 number of times will become, so value of j is 3, so 3 j's, so 3 stars. So here star will come. Why this space is there? Because we got one space here using this formula and 3 using this formula. So 3 number of spaces, 3 number of stars, so 1, then space, then again this star will come, and then one space will come. Why this space is coming? Again, I'm using star and space with this formula, so that is why this space is coming. And then third star will be coming here, and then one space will be printed here. Now again the control will go back to this one, and now the value of j will be updated, right? So here in this case, now in the second iteration, the value of j will be 2, correct? So here the value of j will be 4 minus 2. 2, why 2? Because value of j is 2 in the second iteration. So 4 minus 2 equals to 2, correct? So 2, and the value of j here will be again 2. So now there will be two number of spaces onto this grid, and there will be two number of stars onto this grid. So this space is how many number of time? 2. So 1 and 2, and 2 stars. So one star will come here, then one space, and then again one star will come here, and one space will be here. So you can see in the last iteration, j value will be 1 again. Control will go back here, and then the value of j will be updated. Now in this case, third iteration, value of j is 1. So let me show you. 4 minus 1, which is 3, correct? So 3 spaces will be coming here, and how many times j will come? 1 number of time. So here 1. So here 1 number of time this star is printed with 1 space. So you got my point? This is how we are going to tell Python to print this pattern onto our Python console, correct? So we use this is the second for loop. So we used two for loops. One is the for loop for the upper part of this pattern, so this part, and the second for loop for this lower part, correct? So this is how we are going to print the whole diamond pattern using two for loops. So here let us revise what we did. I'll just delete this. I'll just rub this off. This is our whole program. So here first I defined one function, and inside that function I used rows as the parameter. Now suppose the value of row will be 4. So here I've printed in the first for loop spaces and what number of times that spaces will come, and again star and space and how many times this star and space will come. And then I used this second for loop for our lower part, which says how many times this space will be coming using this formula, and in concatenation with number of stars, how many number of stars there will be there into this grid onto our lower part of this pattern. So I hope you have understood the logic behind this pattern right here. This is the program that we are going to use in our PyCharm, and now let's go to PyCharm and see how this pattern is printed.
So let us begin our writing our program. So here you can see in my PyCharm window is open, and here I've already created diamond shape.py, and here I'm going to write my program. So you already know what I did is, first of all I created a function called diamond, right? Now in my parameters what I'm going to write here is rows. So rows, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create my first for loop for the upper part of the pattern, right? So I'm going to write for I in range, and inside a range I'm going to write rows, correct? And then on the next line I'm going to print the number of spaces and rows. So spaces and stars. So here first of all I am going to print the number of spaces. So in my single inverted commas I am going to tell how many number of times I want this space to be printed. So the formula for that was rows minus I minus 1, correct? And then I am going to concatenate this with the number of stars, correct? So number of stars and then space, and then I'm going to tell how many times I want to print these stars. So here I plus 1, am I right? So now in my next for loop, so this will print the whole upper part of the diamond shape. And now in the next for loop what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable for the next for loop for j in, let's say, range. And what will be the range here? Rows minus 1 to 0 comma, and what was the step? Minus 1, am I right? So I'm going to print here print, and then I am going to print the number of spaces here. So number of spaces, and how many number of spaces I want? Rows minus j, right? And then I'm going to concatenate this with how many number of stars I want. So in my inverted commas, stars and space into, let's say, g number of times, right? So this is by this we have completed this code here, and now to execute it, I need to call my function. So diamond was the name of my function, and then I'm going to specify, let's say, 4 into our rows. So let's try running this. You can see here, you can see in my Python console, a star pattern has been printed. So as you can see, our program is correct, and this diamond shape has been printed. Now I can just change this value, let's say 10, and then I can just run it again, and I can see like this. So you can see this way we can print the diamond shape pattern onto a Python console. And this is our code. So you can see here, I've used first for loop for the upper part, here the upper part, and I've used the second row, the second for loop for the lower part of the diamond shape. And here I'm just specifying how many rows I want, and according to that the diamond pattern is being printed. So I hope you have understood this program well. So this is how the program will work. So this is all about this program, guys, and I hope you have understood well. And if you have any doubts, you can tell me in the comment section below and I'll solve your doubts. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.